You are now listening to Akashic Knowledge for Spiritual Growth and Transformation. Your host along this journey, Pleiades.
Greetings, my ethereal friends. Welcome to the Akashic Knowledge podcast, number 4, this time with video. And I'm going to be hosting it with my brother, Dan Zeno of Dat Chat and Seed Burger. I'm going to just let him introduce himself. And go ahead, brother.
Hello, friends. I'm Dan Zeno, like Pleiades said. I am founder of Seed Burger, also COO of Dat Chat, cybersecurity messaging company, and I'm a lot of other things.
Yeah, man. I feel like I've really witnessed. What'd you say?
I say, we're not big on titles, but
yeah. And one thing I will say, I'm just gonna we coming to you live from space right now. We're really in outer space. Just want to mention that. Forgot to. But, I'm just going to ask you to kind of elaborate upon your journey with what you would call your spiritual awakening. The catalyst of it and kind of the events leading up to it and how it's impacted your life.
For sure. It's a long story. But kind of what led up to it was before my current life. I guess in a previous life, I was a captain in the Air Force. And so I decided to leave the Air Force in 2018, mostly because I just felt something pulling me, like there was something else out there I was supposed to be doing. And it's hard to initiate kind of widespread change in a highly bureaucratic organization like the Air Force. And so, although it was a great place to learn leadership and grow, I knew that if I wanted to make bigger change and kind of find more about who I am as a person, kind of get closer to some type of self-actualization, that I needed to get out of the Air Force and get away from the structure and figure out what I was supposed to be doing in this world. And so I got out in 2018. I had been eating plant-based for a few years, and so I felt like the world needed a plant-based chain restaurant, and I didn't see one of those out there, so I kind of dreamed up the concept of Seed Burger. Meanwhile, I was applying to business schools, and because I didn't know anything about business, I knew a lot about aircraft maintenance and jet propulsion and leadership and some other things, but I didn't know anything about business. And so I felt like I needed to learn that in a business school setting. So I was kind of taking a two-pronged approach. I was either going to start a business and kind of learn business from the streets, or I was going to go into business school and learn it a more formal way. And I really just wanted to go to MIT. I felt a calling to go to MIT. They're very STEM heavy. And so I applied to a couple of schools, Harvard and MIT. I didn't get into Harvard, but I got into MIT. But they let me know that I got in a couple of days after I signed a lease to the restaurant at Seed Burger. And so I just tried to do both, open the restaurant and go to school at MIT. The restaurant's in New Jersey. And so anyways, my first semester at MIT, and kind of before the restaurant was open, I started to get sick, and I didn't know what it was. My body was really sore. I had some kind of viral cough or something going on. I went to the urgent care clinic, and they gave me a bunch of antibiotics. They said they saw fluid in my lungs. The cough and stuff went away, but my body started to deteriorate. I had to go to about 20 different specialists over 9 months, and finally they figured out that I had this disease called eosinophilic fasciitis, which basically tears away at the fascia, the connective tissue between your skin and your muscle. And basically, because of that, they loaded me up with a ton of medication. It's a really rare disease, so there's only 300 cases ever that are documented, and so the doctors didn't really know what to do, and so they threw a lot of medication at me. Excuse me. I haven't got a hair in probably over a month because of this coronavirus lockdown.
Yo, I feel you, man.
Like, my beard's getting so long, I'm chewing on it. But anyways, so if you don't know a lot about fascia, don't worry, because the medical community doesn't know a lot about it either. There's not a lot of fascia specialists out there. They're just kind of learning the significance of it. It's kind of like the stuffing in your body. It's what gives your body structure. And they're finding out, you'll see in some kind of spiritual readings that the fascia is probably one of the biggest parts of our body related
Yeah,
to...
it seems like if somebody's really interested in it, they could really find that as a niche and really take over that. Someone really wants to become a researcher of it. Seems like it's really in demand.
Absolutely. And just some readings that I've done that are non-medical, the fascias are very much related to it's kind of your spiritual energy. And so there's not a lot out there, but anyways, the disease is specifically is called eosinophilic fasciitis, and it's where your white blood cells, eosinophils, which is about 5 to 10% of your white blood cells are eosinophils. They attack your fascia throughout your body. So what it caused me to do is have contractures in my limbs. All of my skin is hardened like wood. I don't even know if you can see it on the camera, but you can kind of maybe see kind of the way it's textured now. And I can't straighten my arm, so this is as far as it'll go. But it's all kind of a wood texture now. So it just kind of locks you up. It makes your skin, it takes away all softness, and it's just, my skin is all hard now. So the good thing is the mosquitoes don't have a lot of luck.
So what has your journey been like with, like, really accepting surrender at some point with this process? Because at some point you must have realized, there's only so much that you can do to control it. You're really along for the ride, that your body is pretty much putting you through that. The reason why these events happened is for some specific reason. Regardless, there's really not much you could do. So at what point did you kind of realize, like, I really just gotta take this hit and see where it takes me? And what was your journey with coming to that realization like?
Absolutely. So it's pretty, for lack of a better word, it can get depressing when you can't move. And so, having been very active, athletic, sports, military my whole life, to all of a sudden be trapped in my own body, to not be able to walk very well. Like, you sit down somewhere, you can't get up without someone helping you. I can put on my clothes by myself. Just basic every day-to-day things. You start to, when you can't move, it gives you a lot of time inside your head to think about things. You start to see the world a little bit differently.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, is like you being so athletic and physically agile and stuff like that, and really interacting with this physical world and interacting with this avatar plane and all that stuff. You being kind of put in a situation to be removed from that through the isolation of it gives you, like you said, a different perspective of the world for you to kind of shift your paradigm and your consciousness and change the way you see things.
Yeah. So let me kind of transition into how it affected my consciousness and my framework of how I see the world now. So before, I was very rational, logical. I grew up in a Southern Christian church, very traditional, but I pretty much had gotten away from religion once I had traveled overseas in the military. I got my bachelor's, master's degree. I didn't find it rational. And so I just stopped kind of believing in anything spiritual. And and I just didn't like the structures of religion. I didn't trust them. And so when all of this happened to me, it was about, I believe it was about May, when all of a sudden things started rapidly changing for me, and I started to get, for lack of a better term, downloads. Like, rapidly, there were my thoughts were racing and everything, and medically they say, my thoughts were racing because of the medications that we were giving me. So cycling on and off a lot of different types of medications. And so my thoughts were speeding up, but I just started to have a lot of visions, a lot of downloads. I was noticing a lot of patterns in the world that I never noticed before. And it was so intense, and the world, it completely changed within a matter of a few days. It seemed like the world was one way, and then it's like the veil was lifted, and I was out of the matrix, within just a few days of just this massive, maybe a trip, I think it could be related to some type of trip, except for, I wasn't taking any type of illicit drugs or anything. It was just, once these downloads started happening, they didn't stop for months, and I saw the world completely differently. I understood that there is a great beauty to this world that is hidden to most people, and that there's this spirituality connected to nature that I can't quite always find the words for, but the only thing I could say is that the world suddenly became more beautiful. And I don't even mean that in a metaphorical way. Like, I mean that literally. The world became more beautiful. And yeah.
So would you say that it's possible that the reason why these downloads started to pour into you was because in your normal state of being, how you were living before this medical condition, you were blocking yourself off to it, and this, like, blocking yourself off to receiving the downloads, and then by having this medical condition happen to you, it kind of put the entire way of being that you were priorly living on hold, and now you were occupying this new way of being that wasn't distorted by all of the blockages that were preventing you from having the download. So essentially, this medical tragedy is what it most likely felt like during the time, may have potentially been the catalyst to allowing you to enter the state of receptivity, to be an open channel for these downloads, to stop blocking them off within your spirit, within your body, within your mind, for them to pour into you. Think that's an accurate statement? Or if not, elaborate.
Yeah, you said a lot there.
Yeah, to say your perspective, we're just talking.
The spirit of what you said is very much accurate. I think you have to be open to hear, you have to be listening. And so people are so constantly moving in their habits and their paradigms that they're stuck in, that we are raised in, that I was stuck in, that you don't see the clues that are left for you to let you know that there's a deep spiritual connectedness that we have to this earth, and beyond this earth. And that until you slow down enough to listen, you won't hear. And and some people don't want to hear, you know.
A lot of people don't want to slow down, and people don't, even if they want to, they don't know how to, because of this fast-paced society, especially in the Western world, that we really do inhabit. So I think that that's a very crucial thing that you touched upon, was slowing down to allow yourself to enter a state of receptivity.
Absolutely. So when I started getting a lot of the downloads, distractions became heightened pain almost. I had to cut off all distractions, and I had to isolate myself. And I could feel people's energy. I don't know. Is that you? Somebody's talking in the background or something?
Yeah, hold on.
Okay. Right.
All right, we're back. We had a little disruption there, but continue what you were saying.
What was I saying? I'm just kidding. What was I saying? Okay, so you have to. I had to isolate myself to hear what I was supposed to hear. And so I remember during that period of time, I could feel everybody's energy like I've never felt it before. And so if somebody had negative energy, it was 100x negative energy that I would feel. Vice versa, if somebody had positive energy, it was 100x positive. And so it was helping me to really connect with people, but also I had to be very deliberate about keeping negative energy away while I was in this sensitive state. It's almost like when you're changing, it's like you have to go into a cocoon. And if you cut that cocoon too fast, the butterfly is going to fall to the ground, you know, because they're in a sensitive state. They have to put a shell around themselves. And so I noticed that I was rapidly changing, not just like in my head, but also physical changes and just my perception to my environment. Everything was changing so fast that I became extremely sensitive. And so I couldn't let anybody close. I had to put my own cocoon around me for a little bit until I was strong enough to take people's energies again. And so I think a lot of that's going to happen while we go through these changes in times. I know we haven't really discussed that much, but
feel free to touch on it, bro. This is just a free conversation.
Yeah. You know, part of the downloads that I got were letting me know that, and this was the summer of last year, that things were about to change dramatically in the world. And here's the timeline, and here's how you can help, you know, but you have a choice whether you want to help or not. But that the world is going to go through a cycle, if you will. So you end up one time, you start a new time. In one era, you start a new era. So people talk about Armageddon and they think it's the end of the world, but it's really the end of an era of our species and the start of a new one. And so that's really all the messaging that I was getting. And, you know, when it's not something that I talk about much anymore publicly, because people, when you talk about these things to the world,
this is the Akashic Knowledge podcast, bro.
Yeah,
listen to the name.
right.
This is the place to talk about it.
Exactly. But when you talk about this stuff, like, to everyday folks, especially before anything happens, like when everything's normal to them, they think you're crazy. You know, oh my gosh, this person is crazy. I'm like, no, seriously.
Crazy is a compliment in today. It's a compliment in today's world to be different from the average person.
Yeah, I remember I told one of my classmates at MIT before I got really sick and I had to be hospitalized and shit. I said, if you knew that the end of the world was coming, or the end of the time, or I broke it down to something more tangible. Let's say a World War III was going to happen, and you knew that was around the corner. What good do you think a management consultant is going to be, or an investment banker is going to be during World War III? Like, would you still choose that career path knowing that around the corner World War III is coming? Or would you prepare to make a difference, you know, be involved, be in the fight? And, you know, I kind of he understood what I was saying, but he's still going into the corporate world. And obviously now a lot of them are scrambling, wondering if they're going to have jobs or not, you know, with this whole economy shifting because of the virus. But that's how I was thinking, was if you knew that this could be your last day on Earth, how would your actions change? You know, are you currently doing something that you would be proud of on your deathbed? Like,
yeah, and see, it's that exact perspective. Sorry, go ahead, finish.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it's that exact perspective that I feel like transcends this current like this whole corona thing, and you know, the whole shifting of the paradigm, and the whole, you know, we are gonna see earthly cataclysms, we're gonna see wars, we're gonna see tragedy, the likes of which anyone living today in any generation most likely has never seen. The world is not going to see the surfacing of this much negativity. Like, it's incredible.
Right.
That is essential for the birthing of the you have to have the negativity fall for the positivity to rise, or just substitute that with anything. You have to eliminate that which is blocking the creation of something new. So, you know, I feel like just like, not just in this situation, but just in life in general, having that perspective of which you just depicted, of if today was your last day on Earth, what would you do? And would on your deathbed, would it be something that you can look back and be like, you know, you can stand behind those actions type of thing? The way that I kind of apply that in my life personally is kind of seeing myself through the perspective of my higher self, because I see, like, I'm Derek, and then I see Pleiades as like my higher self. So I see, how would Pleiades show up in this environment? How would my higher self, my highest potential vibrational aspect of my timeline, how would that aspect of me show up in this situation? Would that higher aspect of me engage in this activity, engage in this conversation, affiliate with this person, etc.? So I feel like all that ties into what you were saying about really just having that, just basically a wider scope perspective of your actions. And I feel like definitely that benefits people tremendously who use that.
Yeah, a wider scope. I think I at one point I'd come to the conclusion, I need to revisit this, but you know me and my numbers. But I came to the conclusion that all we need for people to reach a point to where they can ascend, or at least begin that journey, the first thing they need to do is expand their factor. And what I mean is that how far ahead they see, and how the world, you know, it's like a scope. Do you see at 1x, 10x, 100x, 1000x? Do you see your life in the terms of one day at a time, 1 week at a time, a month, a year, 10 years? And so if people just expanded their factor to where they see at least 10 years ahead into the future, what is the world going to look like 10 years ahead in the future if we continue on the trends that we're currently on, or in the path that we're currently on? Well, I think that one of the issues is that people have a hard time seeing into the future because of some misconceptions with trends and data. And so I'll just get into this real quick. there's a lot of misunderstanding with this coronavirus early on, as far as the rate of spread. And I really want to talk about rate, but I'll start with the coronavirus as an example for evolution and ascendance. And so people, I remember they would drop memes and they were saying that, oh, there's only been 5 cases in the US. There's only been 100 cases in the US. The flu kills 30,000 people. The coronavirus has only killed 10. Everyone's overreacting, whatever. But what they weren't looking at is not about the overall quantity at a certain point in time. It's about the rate of change, right? How fast is this thing moving, and in what way is it growing? A lot of people think linearly. So they think 2 people died yesterday, so 2 more people will die tomorrow, and 2 more people will die the next day. But the world doesn't move in straight lines. Nature don't work in straight lines. Our Earth, despite what any flat earther says, look behind you, it's brown. Things work in curves, right? And so usually nature is gonna be some type of curve. And so so something like this is like a virus compounds on itself. You know, it's gonna be an increase. If you increase 2, 3, 4% every day, that doesn't mean you're increasing by 2, 3, 4 overall quantity, because each time, each iteration, that percentage is a bigger chunk, because 4% of a million is much more than 4% of 100. You know, so people misunderstand how to look into the future, and how to see further than how to see further out, right? How to understand what is on the horizon based off of the trends. And so even people in the highest office in the land are making those mistakes in interpreting the data. And so when I went through all of these downloads and started receiving this messaging, I started to sanity check, because I've always been a rational person, and I'm like, well, let me double check if I am crazy, you know, or if some of this has relevance, you know. So if I talk to you about it, you or encourage me, you know, which is good, you know.
I always like to encourage insanity. It's
right.
Thing to do.
Yeah, I do now too. I think that's part of the ascendance process. But
you got to lose your mind to find your heart.
Yes, absolutely. Another way of saying it is lose your mind to find your soul.
Yep, that too.
Yeah. So maybe next time we can talk about the difference between heart and soul.
Oh, absolutely. That's a topic right there.
Yeah. But so this is how I understand the evolution as well, and which now I see evolution. So Armageddon is not necessarily the end of our world, but it very may well be the end of our species as we know it. In fact, it will be. It means the end of the way we were, and that also means the start of what we will become, which is already within us. It just needs to be awoken. And people think you can't evolve. They think evolution is linear, and that's the problem. They think it's you just change a little bit by little bit by little bit over time. But we know that's not the case. And in fact, there's a study on babies and how they grow. And people for a long time thought that babies grow just a little bit at a time, and that's how they get big over time. 1 millimeter this day, 1 millimeter this day, 1 millimeter this day, whatever. And then it turns out this scientist did a study, and they don't grow like that. They grow like a whole centimeter overnight. Just one, just
yeah,
like that.
I remember hearing that since a young age. I remember hearing like you'll basically just like stay the same height, then like in like a day or two you'll just grow a couple inches. Then like you'll go a couple years and then you'll just grow a couple inches. And like precisely what you're speaking about is why it is so outside of people's paradigm and belief systems and way of understanding and perceiving reality to accept these things about after this whole corona stuff. The world as we've known it for generations will never be the same. There is no going back. There's nothing that you can ever do. There is no, some of us will go back. The world that we know it will never be the same. So it's so beyond some people's paradigm to grasp that, because they don't understand exactly what you're saying. The factors of change, they see it linearly. They see humans have evolved this fast through this amount of time, and then this amount of time, and this amount of time. And they look at everything periodically like that, basing everything off of the past, but they're not really looking at the factor of change and the exponential potential for expansion within something it's basically the snowball energetic momentum effect.
Absolutely. And so I think that works in all systems. So individual bodies as a system, communities, cities, our planet, our solar system, massive events are catalysts to change.
Precisely like the meditation that happened during this opening of a portal on April 4th at 4:44 p.m. It was one of the biggest meditations that happened on the entire planet. It was completely global. Everyone, you don't have to tone into anything. You just got to go inside yourself, and just a whole bunch of people. It doesn't have to be the whole planet, just multiple people getting together and setting intentions and creating that energetic space that creates that snowball effect. And the more people that are beginning to realize this, because the numbers are increasing, they're starting to just slightly open their belief systems. They're starting to drop their limiting beliefs and starting to open to this perspective. And it's slowly, they might not understand it in the articulation that we just discussed, but there's an intuitive sense within them that is, things are changing faster than I may have thought things could change. And just that right there, just that thought right there can really shift someone's paradigm and their whole entire way of being. And that is really the change that we are doing with spreading the messages, and all the different ways that I do it with my services, all different ways that you do it with your services, and just talking to people on the streets and our interactions and the energy that we hold and all that. It's understanding the power of exponential growth through unification. So with that being said, man, that's a pretty good place to really kind of end this off on. We're hitting over 30 minutes a little bit. So if there's any definitely tell the people everything about where to find you, where to find everything that you do, and just any closing words you want to share, bro.
Yeah, I mean, you can, if you're interested, I can start posting on my social media again. But this whole outbreak of just crisis management, really, with the companies and with family and all that, trying to keep everybody calm. But on Instagram, you can find me at Dan Zeno Co, Dan. My last name is Zeno, Zeno, and then Co, Co. And then I have a Twitter, same thing, and then Facebook as well. I'll start posting on those again. My company's in the restaurant, obviously, is shut down right now. I know some restaurants are doing takeout and delivery, but we decided to halt operations for now, just as a safety precaution. I know a lot of our employees weren't feeling too well, so that had me concerned. And more, not so much for their health, because I know that they've gotten through these sicknesses fine, but people take, like yourself, take care of your parents, they take care of others that may be more susceptible to something like this. And so I just wanted to kind of decrease the risk of spread in the community. But that chat is still up and operational. It's a digital company. We are cybersecurity, secure messaging. We still plan on one public this year. We're still taking on investors. It's not all stocks have been tanked by this coronavirus, and all of our employees at that chat can work from home. And so we're just about to roll out an update on our app right now. We've got about 3 million left to raise before we go public. So we're still things slowed down a little bit with the coronavirus, but they are starting to pick back up again. So,
yeah, if anyone listening is looking for an app such as like Snapchat or something like Signal or something to communicate with people, text message, send messages and stuff like that, completely private.
Boom, right there.
Hold your eye. Yep, you even got the shirt, man. You rocking the shirt. Yeah, man. But yo, it's been a real pleasure. It truly has. And you already know we gonna have you on here again in the future when we can do these for a longer duration of time. But definitely we're the first one to be featured on the video. This is gonna be on Spotify, Buzzsprout, SoundCloud, and this is gonna be on YouTube because we have a video accompanying the audio of the podcast this time. So yo, thank you so much for sharing your energy, Dan. I truly appreciate it, as well as speaking on behalf of the entire collective, for sharing your energy, sharing your information, sharing your wisdom, your insights, and just thank you for being, brother. Thank you for all the work that you do. I truly am appreciative of it, and we'll be in contact, brother. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Hey, please, I'm so sorry. Can I say one more thing?
Bro, of course.
Be on the lookout for 108 and 801. I think I told you they keep manifesting over and over again. I have my theories on what it means, but now it's daily manifestation of these numbers. So 801 and 108. Just be on the lookout, and let me know what you think, what you see, what you find concerning those numbers.
I definitely will, man. I definitely will look into those. Yo, thank you for sharing that. That's quite a great thing to end it on, man. Everyone sit with those numbers, see the downloads that pour in.
Absolutely. Hey, take care.
All right. Namaste, brother.
All right. We'll talk soon, but much love.